Good evening. I would like to call to order the November 18th Lake Washington School Board meeting. So please let the record reflect that all board members are present. And our first item of business is to entertain a motion to approve the November 18th agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director LaLiberty to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So our first order of business tonight is the recognition of our National Merit Semifinalists. I first want to just say thank you all for coming and having the opportunity to meet with you out in the lobby. That was fabulous. That was an addition we did this year, so appreciate you all taking that opportunity and providing us that opportunity to get to know you all a little better. So I will pass this off to Dr. Stavum in which to proceed.
Thank you. This is one of our most fun things to celebrate during the course of the year because this represents our students who have worked hard and have obtained a recognition that is not easy to have. And so tonight we're going to ask your administrators from your high schools to come up, and I will introduce them in just a minute, but we first just want to tell you how proud we are of you. This year we have 49 National Merit Semifinalists, and somebody asked me how many we had last year, and last year we had 32. So that is a significant and very impressive increase, so congratulations. I believe that is our highest number ever, is that correct? Yes, so we have that to celebrate as a district. And so students qualify for these awards by completing the 2018 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. And the semifinalists include the highest scoring students in each state. The semifinalists represent less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors. Let me repeat that. Less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors. So the fact that we have 49 of that 1% is an amazing accomplishment. We also have 112 National Merit Commended Scholars, which is also a great honor, and we'll be mentioning those students as well, but we have our National Merit semifinalists with us. So with that, I'm going to introduce the administrators from each of our high schools and ask them to come forward. They are going to actually read the names of the students, and then we're going to ask the students to come forward, and as you all gather, we're going to put you in a group, and then we'll ask our board members to come out and have a photo with you before you leave. So don't run away once you come up front. All right, so I want to introduce from East Lake tonight, Principal Chris Beatty, from ICS, Assistant Principal Mike O'Donnell, and from Juanita Kelly Clapp, Principal Kelly Clapp, from Lake Washington, Principal Christina Thomas, from Tesla STEM, our Principal Cindy Duenas, and from Redmond High School, Principal Jill Vanderveer. And we appreciate all of you being here tonight too to help us recognize our students. So Dr. Beatty, if you would like to come up, you are first in the lineup to introduce your students to us.
To start off, I'd like to apologize for mispronouncing any names. I didn't have a chance to connect with all 40 National Merit semifinalists and commended scholars. But
Chris,
I'll do the best I can.
turn your mic.
Turn the mic.
Right.
Okay, so Eastlake High School, National Merit semifinalists, Bobby Iyer. Come on up. Isabel Burney. Neha Dahlia. Matthew Lee. Megan Matapali, Shanmugam Mayapan, Victoria Raggi, Rohit Ramesh, Emma Traba, Bridget Wilson, Nathan Zhang,
You want me to?
And parents will be posting this too, so you can see the PowerPoint slides or show them to all your friends and relatives too.
Bridget Wilson, Nathan Zhang, Jenna Ewan, and Suraj Dulapali. You want me to call the commended scholars now? Okay, so now it's the 27 commended scholars. I'll read their names as well. Hannah Basu, Kaylee Birchfield, Lucas Boscovich, Hannah Burrows, Sanjay Barugapalli, Mark Shvetsov, Sarah Ducher, William Halbert, Alexandra Hodges, Harrison Keyser, Teha Kulkarni, Julia Lee, Melita Madur, Elliot McNear, Adarsh Mulapuri, Aditya Shankar, Romir Singla, Simran Tandon, Rohan Thandu, Abash Upandyaya, Meghana Vadlamudi, Laura Wang, Victor Wang, Patrick Wu, Riva Uramili, Melody Zhu, and Kevin Zhao. Those are the commended scholars. So we're very proud of you. I'm sure your parents are as well. So picture time.
We're keeping them all up here. Yep. Get comfortable.
Good evening. I'm Michael Donald with International Community School. Of our 30 graduate and members of our graduating class, 8 are recognized tonight. Our first 4 with our semifinalists, Alex Chang, Cheryl Lee, Annalisa Mueller-Eberstein, Fine, and Nisha Ramesh. Our committed scholars, Leo Fan, goes by Leo, Nicola Bojanek, Dithi Raghavan, and Athena Ho. Congratulations.
I'd like to announce the commended scholars for Juanita. We have Anisha Bardwash, Catherine Gu, Rachel Hennant, Vishwa Kenyer Neelukandan, Henry Sterrett, and John Sterrett.
For Lake Washington High School, our National Merit semifinalist is Carlos Alvarez. One other point about Carlos is that he's also a National Hispanic Recognition Program as well. And Mark Hilwa. And then our commended scholars are Wei Zhang Ah, Maxwell Bennett, Kevin Carlson, Matteo De Beer, Zara Rammerman, and Mayun Zhao.
For Tesla STEM High School, our semifinalists, Hoonjin Cho, Annie Denton, Ario Kari, Isha Morali, I think they're out of order. I'm going to go ahead with my order that was sent to me. Amrutha Srikanth, and Anusha Shrivastava. No. Oh, I am so sorry. These are out of order. Somya Pratipati. Devesh Sarda. Rashika Viramachanina. Maxwell Wang. David Stanko. Aditi Subramanian. And Carly Wharton. And for our commended scholars, we have Kishan Baliga, Anirudh Bansargi, Arundhati Basu, Oliver Benton, Manaspini Kalmidi, Lena Chai, Siddharth Chandrasekhar, Mira Chinta, Ayushi Desi, Archibald Fano, Matthias Foster, Mintra Frazini, Natisha Gautam, Anika Jilani, Sarthank Gupta, Iman Khatri, Ratika Kudalur, Tenzin Lo, Callista Morley, Varshan Muhanthan, Lahari Nitha Valu, Rachel Uman, Minu Pade, Daniel Reshevki, Annie Liu, David Lin, Michael Miller, Joel Renish, Siddharth Shendi, Riha Shinde, Varan Shrithar, Roshni Srikanth, Tristan Stevens, Vedantu Vikantapathy, Esther Wang, Tina Wen, and Colton Zhang, commended scholars. Sorry.
Good evening. National Merit semifinalists from Redmond High School are Jennifer Chow, Colin Dang, Khan Ingech, Sathvik Kakanuru, Tejas Kalyan, Nini Lee, Ashley Ludi, Abignia Mantha, Sophia Mitchell, Manish Rajagopal, Deepti Ramani, Arpit Ranasaria, Suniti Ranganathan, Jordan Rothkowitz, Mukil Shanamugam, Ananya Shrivastava, and Eileen Zhang. Commended scholars from Redmond High School, Atul Ajoy, Sophia Alayo, Semen Baranov, Noah Barr, Nicole Barova, Paul Boldirev, Natalie Brigham, Justin Cantwell, Marina Chen, Catherine Cui, Martin Dadsey, Haley Farrington, Ophir Horowitz, Ananya Jain, Mariam Khan, Simran Malhi, Ronit Maduri, Harshit Pandey, and Hunter Pettit.
Okay, so we're going to ask.
Sorry.
Oh, is there
second,
another
sorry.
one? Okay.
Also,
Keep
from
going.
Redmond High School Commended Scholars, Syed Raza, Akriti Srinivastava, Andre Shipos, Nicole Smith, Luke Stemple, Priyanshu Sugasani, Zafar Tao, Kirtana Tamana, Faye Tyson, and Tristan Tischhauser. Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to ask students to stay put while board members come forth and have a photo with you. So scooch together while they are on their way to the front.
The 2 rows. We were told to put you in the 2 rows.
And before they leave, let's have board members go back and principals come up and step out.
Nice job. Oh, yeah.
Come on up, principals.
Just let us know when we should stop ducking. And that will do.
Thank you very much for coming, and want to, at this moment, before you all take off, we'd like to take a moment, knowing that these students have done a lot of work. They've also had a lot of support behind them. So if we could take this moment to just recognize the parents in the audience. So if you all could just stand up, and we can give you a round of applause for all the great work you've done as well. So thank you so much, and good luck with your future, and hopefully the cards land you where you want to be in the next steps for the next year. So with that, we will be continuing with our meeting. If you are welcome to stay, you are also welcome to leave at this point in time, knowing you might have some homework or other activities you need to take care of. If you'd like to catch us on video, we'll be there as well.
Because you wouldn't have been here without that homework.
So thank you. All right, well, thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment. No one has signed up for this evening, so we will just be continuing on. So the next item is the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
And will you pull the board?
Second.
Oh, I need a second, sorry. It's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Stewart to approve the consent agenda. Dr. Stavum, could you please pull the board?
Yes. Director Sage?
Yes.
Director La Liberty?
Yes.
Director Stewart?
Yes.
President Bleasner?
Yes?
Director Carlson?
Yes.
And if you could please summarize the donations that we received.
Yes, this month from Lake Washington Schools Foundation, we have donations in the amount of $34,322.20. And from our PTSA, we have a donation in the amount of $84,295.14 for a very grand and generous donations in the amount of $118,617.34.
Wonderful, and thank you to everyone who has supported our schools and ensures that our students have excellent experiences. So from there, we do have 3 items on the non-consent agenda this evening, and so we will be starting with the graduation requirements in the first reading. So Dr. Stavum?
Yes, and at this time, I'm going to ask Mike Van Orden, our Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning Services, to come forward as we look at policy 2410P, which is our new graduation requirements. And so just as a little bit of background, during our last legislative session, House Bill 1599, which was called Multiple Pathways to Graduation, was approved. This expands the ways that our Washington students have to show their readiness for their next steps after high schools. A draft of these procedures was reviewed at our November 4th study session, and tonight Mike will give another overview. And just as a reminder, this is something new, and I think one of the things that we have to kind of continually discern is what is language from our state that defines these pathways, and what do we have as programs in our district that allow students to have a robust program and course options along with these requirements. And the intent of this was to have multiple ways that students can demonstrate that readiness to move on from high school. And so Mike will give us another overview.
So as Dr. Stavum mentioned, the recommendations we're bringing forward tonight are for graduation requirements that were set by House Bill 1599. There's also one that we included that was in response to some new legislation around a standalone civics course, which I'll touch on tonight. In addition, there are some things that were taken away that are part of our current procedures, and that includes our state assessment system and the requirement to meet standard on SBA. So what we'll do is go through a high-level overview of each of those changes. Also, to point out, as Dr. Stavum mentioned, these are changes that came about as a result of new legislation, so we're not bringing forward, for example, recommendations for other major changes. That would be something that would be part of a different process. So as I mentioned, there were some changes to the state assessment system. Specifically, we used to have a requirement that students met standard on SBA for mathematics, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, and English Language Arts, and that was one of the only assessment requirements that were required of our students. As we're going to talk about in a few minutes now, there's a whole series of other additional options. And so that meeting that standard on English Language Arts and Smarter Balanced Assessment allowed students to earn what was called the Certificate of Academic Achievement. That ended officially with the class of 2019. And so what we've done with our current procedures is we've deleted that requirement in the procedures. In addition, now there are 3 requirements for students to graduate and earn a high school diploma. And so one of those is the High School and Beyond Plan, which is part of our current graduation requirements. However, there were some additions that were made to that, which we'll talk about. In addition, there are some credit-based requirements, and so those are the 24 credits. Again, no major changes there as with the High School Beyond Plan, other than some procedural changes in terms of how credits are moved from the middle school to the high school, as well as I mentioned the standalone civics class. The most significant changes are in what are now called graduation pathway options, which give students a number of different ways to demonstrate competency, particularly around English language arts and mathematics. So for the high school and beyond plan, as I mentioned, we've had a high school and beyond plan as part of our graduation requirements for a number of years. That's an opportunity for students to think about and plan for their future and then align course taking and programs in their high school experience with their future plans. What's changed is some new additional requirements, particularly on the part of the staff and the programming that we offer for our students. So, for example, now we're asked to think about, as students are coming into their junior year, having information in the high school and beyond plan that allows them to think about courses that they'll be taking in their junior and senior year. It'll be electronically available, which we've had for a number of years. That's a new requirement. Also, to identify dual credit options. And remember, dual credit are courses that allow students to earn both high school and college credit. And so what we'll be doing explicitly now is pointing out to students, these are the courses that are offered that you could take if you were interested. Including information about state financial aid programs and specifically the College Bound Scholarship. In addition, there's some new language around students with individualized education programs that needs to match up with a high school transition plan, the high school and beyond plan, and staff members that work with students on high school and beyond plan need to be accessible to all students. So students with individualized education programs need to have access to the same people and resources to plan their high school and beyond plan as every student in the school. And then finally, there are some kind of minor changes we talked about in terms of just the Zello resources and how students access those. So again, the changes to the district procedures are we have added to the former language of the high school and beyond plan, added these components. That's on section A, pages 1 and 2 of the new procedures that we're proposing. Mentioned credit-based requirements. Again, our credits-based requirements have been very much in line with the state requirements for a number of years now. What is new is this idea that as students earn or take high school credits in the middle school, in the past, they've had to ask to have those credits moved up. And so that can be the credit requirements that I've completed an algebra course that's required for graduation and the grade. What's changed in the new language is that's going to all happen automatically now. So as students take an algebra class in middle school, that's a high school level class, that automatically is applied to their transcript as well as the grade for that class. So then they will have met the high school algebra requirement and they will have a grade included in their GPA. What's changed is they can now say, I want that taken off. That can be taken off either as an entire credit in class or the grade can be changed to a pass that won't impact their GPA. So they have now, we found out as of last week, that will happen through the end of 11th grade. We used to think it was 12th. So by the end of 11th grade, they need to let the school know, and we'll have a formal process, a form that will happen that will be taken care of by the registrar at the school to pull that off the transcript, either as a full class credit or as a grade change. So that we updated, that was a minor change to the language in our credit part of our graduation requirements, and then we added a new section very specifically related to high school credit in the middle school that's aligned with the legislative language. As I mentioned, the new graduation pathways are the most significant of the changes, and we shared more information on this at the study session. But now, as you see, there are a number of different ways that students can demonstrate proficiency in addition to SBA. So again, before it was Smarter Balanced Assessment for ELA and Math, which is still one of the options, but not the only option. So that's the delinking. In addition, they can qualify for credit in dual credit courses. And you may recall in the study session, we identified which specific courses those include. We also have the opportunity to earn high school credit in a transition course. Currently, right now, that's a Bridge to College program that is a specific program that we can provide training for and curriculum around, again, in English language arts and math. There's also the opportunity to earn C+ in AP or Cambridge courses. That also applies to International Baccalaureate, though we don't offer that in our district. And then earning a 3 or higher on the AP exam or an EE on the Cambridge exam. There's also state board cut scores for SAT and ACT that are set each year by the board and state board and then posted on the state board website and the OSPI website. And then finally, for those specific ones that are really tightly aligned with ELA and math, it's any combination of those. So they could meet, for example, SAT for the ELA portion and a Cambridge class for the math portion. The two that are pretty significantly different than what we've seen in the past is the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. That's meeting the minimum score for entrance into an armed service, and then a sequence of CTE courses, and we've received some clarification around that. That's 2 CTE courses in a particular program area. So for example, in a marketing area, would be 2 sequential courses that allow students to earn dual credit, or, and that also are rigorous and that allow them to earn industry certification. It can also be 2 courses from different program areas. So for example, maybe marketing and health services. Those courses have to be approved by our Career and Technical Education Advisory, and again, have to be dual credit, lead to industry certification in a career. So again, what we've done here is we've added language with very specific procedures for each of those into our new policy, and so that's listed out as a separate and new category now. In addition, there were some other changes that I mentioned. So one of those is, as you know, is we're moving to a new policy numbering system that's more aligned with most districts in the state. So we've changed the lettering system from IFK to 2410. There was in our current procedures, there are graduation requirements going back, I think, to the class of 2014. So we're pulling those out. As I mentioned, there's some new language around a civics requirement that requires civics to be either a standalone class or embedded in an advanced placement class. So we're putting that in to line up with new legislation. We also, what we didn't have the last time we met was that grade and test score requirement for Cambridge. And then finally, the last few are ASVAB and CTE course information. We put that in. The appeal process that was pointed out for students who are accepting credit, and then just some language around clarity and consistency.
This is strange, but for the historical graduation requirement language, do we archive that somewhere?
Yes, we're required to archive that.
Good.
Yeah. All right, and then the last thing was, you asked at our study session, just if we get any updates on rulemaking. I think I just blew up the slide there. So there were a few. We did just receive, I think it was last week, some information around, and you asked this as well, is there a score for the Cambridge exam? And yes, that is an E, so that's in our new policy language, or our new procedure language. The courses have been identified for Cambridge and AP. In addition, there's some new language, some clarification around the score required. So it's the least the minimum established by the military for eligibility to serve in a branch of the armed services at the time the student takes the assessment. And so that will be published by State Board and OSPI as well, but that's set by the armed services. And then finally, the CTE pathway, as I mentioned earlier, those can be 2 courses in the same pathway area. So as I mentioned, marketing, health services, business, those are different. We have different program areas, and so they need to be 2 consecutive courses that earn dual credit and lead to certification. Or they can be courses from different program areas, again, same requirements, dual credit, lead to industry certification, and our CTE advisory has to recommend those. We also report that to OSPI. So those were the substantive changes that were made since we had our last study session.
Any questions or follow-up? Director Sage.
Just a quick question about the middle school taking a class like algebra that can be taken for credit in high school. I realize that they can ask for that grade to be made pass-fail, or they can ask for it to be removed. My question is, do middle schoolers understand that this is a high school class that they really want to try hard in, because it will show up on your report card unless you ask for it to be removed?
Yeah, so knowing when students sign up for our algebra and geometry and world language courses, we're very clear it's a high school level class. The difference, as you mentioned, will be it's automatically going up. So we'll have families, for example, that had siblings that took the class and they understood that they would have to ask to have it moved up, and now it's going to be automatic. Part of our plan is to communicate through our middle school counselors. We're meeting actually with middle school principals and high school principals today to talk about that communication flow. It'll be in course catalogs. We'll have lots of information that's coming out. I think the plan would be every year, freshman, sophomore, junior year, hey, remember, if you have a course on your transcript and you want to have it removed, you have to do that by your junior. I think there'll need to be a lot of communication these first few years until this becomes the new normal, because right now the normal is I choose to have it put on. Now we're asking to have it taken off. So lots of communication will happen.
I guess my question was just, do middle schoolers a couple of my kids took algebra as 7th graders, and I'm not sure that they did fine, but I'm not sure that they understood that this was going to be a high school level class and that you should really take these grades seriously. This is not elementary anymore.
That's not my sense in talking with our middle school teachers that teach algebra and geometry and world languages, that they are very clear. In fact, sometimes maybe over clear that these are high school courses and hold a pretty high bar for our students. So, I mean, it may vary a little bit from school to school, but my sense is that's very explicit as they're working with kids, and I think they emphasize it throughout their whole course taking.
Thank you.
On the pass-fail, I'd like to make sure that the kids have a very explicit understanding of where that bar falls in between, as opposed to, in most people's minds, it's D is pass and F is adios.
Yeah.
Whereas pass-fail often is C level. So that, I think, that, to be quite frankly, they need to realize that.
Yeah. So a couple things. One is, if a student fails a high school course taken in middle school, that won't be automatically transcribed. So that will be a decision rule as we're moving those courses up. The D is a pass, and so that will be moved up, and that would be, in fact, we're thinking probably any student who's earned anything under a B will most likely choose to not have that included in their transcript, just based on our past experience. So they may choose to have that pass option. You're right, though, so that pass could mean in middle school I earned anything from a B all the way down to a D, but the legislation is very specific. It says a family can choose to have pass put on the transcript. Now, the other thing to remember is kind of what you're saying here, is a 7th grader taking algebra is very different than a 10th or 11th grader taking algebra, and so I think this is an acknowledgement that you took it, you still want to pass the algebra requirement, but the grade you don't want in your high school grade point average.
And so, final clarification along those lines. Regardless of whether you've got a pass-fail or a grade on that, that wouldn't be rolled into your high school GPA, would it?
Yes, automatically rolled into the high school GPA. So,
and is that the law that you have to do that? Because they have credit, but I didn't realize
yes.
that it was the GPA that it
So
affects.
both automatically go up, then the family can say, I don't want the grade included, I'd rather have a pass,
okay,
or I just don't want it on the transcript at all. And they can do that by the 11th grade year. We're just going to have to continue to remind them throughout those 3 years so we don't have a family that gets to their junior year, they're applying for college or their senior year, and all of a sudden there's this grade in their grade point average they could have taken off.
But to your question, Director Sage, if you're in Ms. Meyerie's class, oh yeah, you know.
So in that communication piece that you're speaking to, so how will we ensure, I'm just thinking of the multitude of languages we have spoken, and the high school and beyond plan has components of parent and guardian. I know there was requirement for 2, but knowing we have as many languages as we do, how will we ensure that our parents and students have
Right
access?
now, so what we're doing right now is we're looking at our district translation services, and so our communications department and Gloria Henderson and our family and community relations is going through and just looking at kind of all of our documents and all of the ways we communicate. And I think the plan, and I'm looking to Matt if I'm misspeaking here, but I think the idea is to look at all of the documents that are required that we need to get out. So there's special education documentation, course information, this, and have a plan for how we're going to translate into our top languages for all of those things. And so this would fall into that cluster. This would be a high level, important for graduation. We need to have it translated into multiple languages. We know every year what our top languages are, and then we would have a system to manage that. That's including budgeting, making sure we get it to all of our schools. So that's part of their work right now, is just to identify what all of those are. So it's not only these requirements, but other things as well.
So knowing as artificial intelligence improves and we're able to improve automatic translation services that are occurring, are we also looking at those, just knowing the multitude of languages that are out there? There's no way we can translate for every single one of them, especially not in a paper format. It's going to need to be an automatic.
Yeah.
So are we following that? Because I see this as a consistent, it'll be a continuing concern that we have with everything, and we can't keep up through translation services.
Yes, and we want to make sure, though, that those aren't perfect, right? And so there's miscommunication sometimes in them, so we don't want to send something out about a high school graduation requirement that's mistranslated. So we need to be very careful. Now, there's informal communication that goes out, hey, remember to turn in your transcript, talk to your counselor. Those are all really important things to have. If it's a line about pass or fail and we get it wrong, then that could cause a student to have some mistakes made that would potentially harm them. So we have to distinguish between those as well. What needs to be formally translated exactly, and what can we communicate that helps students to navigate through their high school experience?
Thank you. Any other questions? I actually have just one more then. You did not cover it this evening, but I know in the policy it speaks to the definition of a credit. And so I don't believe we need to change a policy at this point in time, but I think it's something for the board to think about. Is currently they talk about mastery-based credit. We have a seat time credit of 150 hours. So that piece around how do we start shifting or thinking about what mastery-based, which we're currently using for world language through the STAMP testing. Are there other ways we can look at competency-based more often? So that's just a piece to think about. I don't think it impacts this policy as is, but I do think it's something we need to be aware of as a way to go forward.
Yeah, and there's some, State Board is convening a task force to look at some of the barriers and challenges, because you have to think about staffing and seat time and all of those things. How do you assure quality? So I think there'll be some good information that we could use to inform that discussion.
Right, and Issaquah has their school they began, the Gibson X school, that's using a mastery-based component. So it's a local neighbor who's doing so. So that's kind of a fun concept as well. Any other questions directly related to the policy? Concerns? No? All right. Well, thank you so much. So this will come back at our next board meeting for the second reading or approval. So take your time to read through it. If you have any other additional questions, feel free to email. And then we can make sure to have any discussion of that at the next round. All right. So with that, thank you so much, Mike, appreciate it. And we will move on to the next item on our non-consent agenda, which is the first reading of the new operational governance policies. And so just as a reminder, these were sort of the procedural aspects that were in our original policies that didn't quite fit into those. So we've created a different, it's operationalizing it. So you will have seen that these are the similar ones we've had in the past on our board legal status and different things. So this will be our first reading this evening. So Dr. Statham?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that, other than these were formerly in our GPs, and now these are OGPs. And so I would just open it up to the board. We just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose some of those operational pieces. We had talked about putting it into another format, but I think it's most appropriate in policy. So unless you have any other questions, the language is all the same as what was in existing policy.
Director Carlson?
Did we have to add an extra letter to the acronym? No, I'm perfectly happy.
Director LaLiberty, do you have a? Okay, so are there any questions in regards to the one piece that was left on these that we had talked about at some point was the possibility of the board reorganization and the timing of that. So that will be a question as we look at that at the study session in the next round.
And the study session needs to happen next, it's 2 weeks from now, is?
The study session will be December 9th.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Any questions? All right, that's it. So then our next item on the agenda is the strategic plan connection on technology, operations, and integration. So this is our typical update on the strategic plan, and I will hand this off to Dr. Statham.
Yep, and I already see that Deputy Superintendent John Holman is queuing things up, along with Sally Askman, our Director of Technology Operations, and Mindy Mallon, our Director of Tech Integration. And we're going to have an update that combines their two worlds as we make things work on the operational side and how that also supports us then on the instructional side. And so I will ask John to kick things off for us.
Great. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about our technology operations and technology integration programs. Really, the goal for all of our end users is that they don't really see these as two separate entities, but that they see this integrated approach to providing robust technology services to our students, our families, and our staff. And so in that's how we thought about providing you with this update, because we didn't want to present it as two disparate pieces, because they truly are integrated programs and departments that work together. As we think about the state of technology in our country right now, we have looked to a best practices, if you will, research group. Their name is EAB, and they've been working with colleges and universities all over the country for the last 15, 20 years to identify best practices around educating students. And just in the last handful of years, they've started working with K-12. And they've really started working with kind of superintendent cabinets around the teaching and learning of students. But what they kept hearing about was technology. And so over the last year, they've had a specific focus on what are the technology needs of school districts, because they kept hearing this over and over from superintendents. And so they actually did some work with CTOs, and that's a CTO. Chief Technology Officer, excuse me, and pulling them together, thank you. A little brain lapse there. Pulling them together to say, what is it that are the highest needs and what are the kind of universal themes across school districts that are really kind of elevating right now and that are needing work. And so you can kind of see there the 5 most salient items that came to play. Security and privacy, things that the board has heard us talk about quite a bit. Crossing the ed tech adoption chasm, going from identifying a need to actually implementing those. Next generation assessment, fine-tuning the device strategy. There's many districts across the country that they're still grappling with what is the device we want to have in our staff and our students' hand, and then always advancing innovation is one of those key pieces in our technology work. And so with that, I want to hand it over to both Sally and Mindy to walk you through the presentation.
Thank you, John. Good evening. I'm Sally Askman, and this is Mindy Mallon. And before we get into what happens in the classroom, we wanted to talk a little bit about the fast facts of our district, our technology enterprise. We are very grateful for the community's generosity and funding through our tech levy, the majority of the technology we'll talk about today. We have 32,000 computers in place. We have students and staff, 35,000 accounts in Office 365. Inside of Office 365 are 21 million files. That's 85 terabytes. To put that into context, the Hubble telescope collects 10 terabytes annually. The Library of Congress is 15 terabytes. If we were to collect 85 terabytes of music, we could play it for 1,445,000 hours or 164 years. So we have a lot of data that we file and that we protect when we're working in our schools and in our business of the district. We are lucky to have a private fiber network that connects all of our schools together. The fiber network runs on 1,800 switches, 2,300 wireless access points. 800 of our security cameras in the schools are running off the network. They're powered by the network. 3,000 voice calls daily traverse the network, and 1 million emails sent and 4 million emails received in a month travel across our network. 55 campuses are connected, and of course 31,000 plus students are served. We have 1,800 classrooms with new technology. We have over 282 million accounts provisioned for software and curricular resources annually. And as we're moving towards one-to-one for all students, we have 20,000 student laptops in the system. Lastly, our support ratio right now with our combined departments is 1 technology staff to 600 users. As a comparison in the industry, the ratio would be about 1 to 150. Microsoft enjoys about 1 to 100 users. And the one thing that we wish we could do with more support is provide deeper hands-on support to our teachers as they're traversing this paradigm and change in technology with us.
So what does this technology enable us to do? So we have 4 value propositions or critical elements that are essential to our mission. One is that we are working within a safe and appropriate digital learning environment, that we're providing flexible and powerful technology for teaching, that we're taking advantage of our strategic partnerships, and that we are working in a resilient, robust, secure network system. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail on each of these propositions as we move through the presentation.
So how do we do this in terms of the safe and appropriate digital learning environment for students? We work very, very closely together, technology operations and technology integration. We also work along with our partners on a regular basis in special services and in teaching and learning to ensure that we're all working together to deliver the right solutions to meet the needs of all of our students. We have we're going to talk a little bit about our student laptop program to kind of put this in context. As I mentioned, we have 20,000 laptops in the system right now. We just went one-to-one with our 5th graders last year. As we look at equipment, we go through a very rigorous procurement process. We have an RFI scorecard, request for information scorecard, or RFP if it has to go to RFP, that helps us make the best decision possible to meet the needs of the experience for the students that we're targeting. So 5th graders, we had a very different process. We engage in that process both technology integration and other stakeholders that will be using the equipment. We even had student focus nights and parent focus nights to come in and look at the finalist equipment. Additionally, once we select the equipment, we require units to run it through a very rigorous testing and quality assurance process where we make sure that the equipment works well on our network, that it runs all of our curricular resources and our productivity applications on our network, and that it will be a good tool for our students and will stand up to at least a 4-year life cycle. And then we also establish, once we pass that test, we establish a relationship with the vendor who's providing it, where we can guarantee warranty and break-fix repair. We have a depot here in the district over near support services where they come here, so we're no longer sending equipment out and losing that precious time having equipment out of the hands of students. And then our support model on-site in the schools. Our technicians work on-site in the schools and secondary schools 4 hours a day. And we have student support desks there for the one-to-one program. In elementary, currently, they work on-site for 2 hours per day. And Mindy supports the professional learning side of these initiatives as we roll them out.
So with any new implementation, we are looking at the professional learning that must take place so that we are ensuring a successful implementation. We start with a pilot and work with our teachers to actually identify what are the needs. We're really striving with each of these new implementations that we're trying to transform the teaching and learning environment so that we really are preparing kids for the 21st century. So after we have that determined, we then work large scale. This year with our 5th grade one-to-one, we offered or actually provided and required our teachers, our 5th grade teachers, to participate in 2 full release days. And the intention behind those release days was to, again, capitalize on our core instructional technologies. We collaborated with teaching and learning and combined efforts in applying our core instructional technologies to the new science standards and new science curriculum. And so as we move forward with that work, we want to make sure that we're also making sure that our students have the digital citizenship skills they need in order for them to succeed as digital learners, leaders, and citizens of tomorrow. We need to make sure that they have a strong understanding of what it means to be a good digital citizen. So we do that through our annual AUP training, as well as we are implementing new digital citizenship curriculum this year. Common Sense Media has updated all of their lessons for K-12, and we are implementing that across the grade levels. What their focus is a little bit different this year, where they're really working on establishing dispositions within kids as well as skills. So it's not just don't do this, but really what do we need to be thinking about when we are using technology. So some of those themes across all grade levels talk about media balance and well-being, online privacy and security, what it means to have a digital footprint and identity, and there are a couple of different other areas. There are 6 different themes that cover all grade levels. So one of the great things about in our 5th grade one-to-one is that our students have the ability to access our learning tools as they need it throughout the day. So that might be some of our learning tools within Microsoft, as well as our third-party tools such as Readwell or Clicker 7. So they can use those to support language acquisition and understanding across all content areas. So when we talk about a flexible and powerful technology for our teachers, we're looking at, we have been fortunate enough that our current levy has allowed us to update our classroom footprint, and what that includes is our technology, so it's the interactive panel, our teacher devices, as well as our student devices, particularly at the 5th grade. We go through a similar procurement process as we did with the laptops, where our teams collaborate in identifying and selecting the interactive panels K-12. So this collaboration included our assistive technology folks, who are also out there and ensuring that our products are going to meet the needs of some of our more challenged learners. The installation of these interactive panels supports flexibility in teaching and learning, and really supports what we're hoping is that it really supports that 21st century learning that we're striving for in all of our classrooms. So really allowing for creativity, supporting critical thinking, supporting collaboration and information, media and tech literacy, leadership, problem solving, etc. So when we talk about our classroom footprint, we're trying to ensure voice and choice for both students and teachers in terms of how they learn and how they deliver instruction. Speaking of voice and choice, when it comes to the use of third-party digital tools, we have a rigorous software and web application request process that when a teacher or a department is interested in bringing in a new tool to support content or standards, that they must follow and submit for review. The purpose of this review process is to ensure alignment with our content and with our standards, to make sure that it operates within our environment and that we are adhering to student privacy and protection laws. And as many of you know, student privacy and protection is something that continues to be more and more important for us. And so we feel fortunate that we've been ahead of the game on this one and that we are being very diligent about that work.
Strategic partnerships. We have enjoyed many strategic partnerships, have many strategic partnerships with both community organizations, other school districts, and vendors. 2 vendor partnerships that we can think of right now that have helped us with our new technology are Advanced Classroom Technologies. They have certified on all of our newly adopted equipment, and they install in all of our classrooms all of the technology and test it up. So even in our new buildings, this company has been behind the scenes working day and night, and we really value their partnership. Another partnership that's very strong for us, that's helping us with ongoing professional development, is Smart Technologies, our interactive panels. So they work very closely with Mindy's team after the installation and come in and help us with the initial training with teachers on an ongoing basis. What we want to highlight today is our Microsoft partnership. The close proximity to us for their worldwide headquarters is very beneficial to us, and it provides us the opportunity to foster even a further and deeper relationship with them. We value their expertise, and because we've been a Microsoft platform district for a long time, we can leverage their expertise to help us see that all of our adults and all of our students are able to use their tools effectively, both for running the business of the district and learning and teaching within the district. So I mentioned before, we have Office 365 platform for all of our students and staff. Another way we leverage, or we're actually rolling out the Teams platform right now, which sits as part of the Office 365 platform. That's helping with our adult-to-adult collaboration right now, and we are able to receive help and training through Microsoft on that, in addition to our own resources. We also are able to participate in futures innovations, pre-release opportunities to understand what's happening in artificial intelligence, what's happening in coding platforms, what are some of the R&D experiences that we could actually bring here in both business and learning settings, and we know what to plan for ahead of time through this strategic partnership. Very important also is the safety and security of our network. Microsoft is probably, maybe arguably, but probably one of the largest targets in the world for cyber intrusion, cyber crime, intellectual property theft, basic just business disruption for a variety of reasons. They have over time built a very deep, layered security infrastructure, and they've made most of those products available to their customers. So we are able to leverage those products, place them inside our enterprise, and feel very confident in the security and safety we bring to our students and our staff and our business of running the district. And then lastly, but not least, we have access to local experts. We couldn't possibly staff people who could keep pace with the changes of technology, especially the sophisticated areas around running the infrastructure behind the scenes, all of the cybersecurity and things that we do to protect our enterprise. So we're very fortunate to have business partners in place that help us every day.
So in talking about experts, one of the experts that Microsoft provides for us are professional learning trainers. So we have been very intentional in really encouraging our teachers to participate and become Microsoft certified experts. And what that means is that they have a strong understanding of the different tools available to them in the platform, and that they are utilizing those within instruction for innovative purposes. So in doing so, we have a strategic effort in which we are training all of our TOSAs, which are our teacher leaders who work with other teachers throughout the district and providing professional learning, to ensure that they are very confident in the use of our tools. And by this December, we will have trained the majority of our TOSAs so that they are considered MIEs. And you'll see the badge up there, that's a badging that Microsoft offers. So along with having that type of learning available, we also know that the research tells us that we need to have choice for our educators in terms of how they gain information. So we are also collaborating with Microsoft to provide the MIE certification through an online system. So we're trying to get that embedded within our own professional learning management system so that they can take that training at a time that maybe works better for them. So anytime, any place. We have leveraged our Microsoft volunteers, and we have teachers that are collaborating with Microsoft. We have a project coming up at Tesla this year in which a teacher is actually working on a co-creation project where she's bringing in the Microsoft Garage team that actually developed Teams, which we are implementing, and she's working on design thinking. And so those are just some of the really cool ways that they are willing to support us in our work and that we need their help. One of the resources within Microsoft that we are most excited about advancing is the use of our learning tools within Microsoft products. Learning tools facilitate access to core content and allow for differentiation to support varying learning needs. It doesn't matter if a child is a special needs child or a child who might be receiving intervention services or just a child who has a different choice of learning. But basically, these learning tools continue to expand. Microsoft engages us in conversation around those tools, and we are involved in the TAP group that provides kind of early access and understanding to what it is that they're working on. And from the words of one of our assistive technology folks, they've indicated that if Microsoft continues to advance their learning tools and release these features, that we really could potentially eliminate some of the use of our other third-party tools, because if it's right within our platform that students are working, it is much easier to access these tools. So that is a big focus for us moving forward this year.
So the last value proposition that we wanted to talk about tonight is our resilient, robust, secure network. It's the network that connects and protects us. So it connects all of our classrooms and our buildings together. It enables business systems to work. A lot of people forget about the things that go on behind the scenes: student information systems, payroll, accounting, job application systems, the professional learning management system, the transportation and bus routing systems, a field trip ticket system, volunteer management system, point of sale systems, and it goes on and on. So all of those are running and transacting across our network. Our voice system is all on our network now, and E911 is programmed to actually identify the exact phone set when an E911 call is made to various police departments. So that's all running on our network. Our building controls and systems are all have security cameras are plugged into the network and powered over the network. Access control will begin to run bell schedules over the network. It's in pilot right now. HVAC systems, lighting control systems, irrigation control systems, all are running over and counting on the network. And then lastly, but not least, filtering and firewalls. About 40,000 websites per day are launched. Our filters categorize safe sites and non-safe sites through a series of processes. So we couldn't possibly do this ourselves. We rely on these next generation firewalls and filtering services to help us grab those sites as fast as we can, block the ones that are inappropriate for students, and let the ones through that will foster learning. And then our firewalls, again, protect us against that cyber intrusion, cyber crime, phishing attacks that school districts are big targets for.
So without this connected enterprise, we would not be able to provide the valuable teaching and learning environments that make Lake Washington School District unique and allow for those innovative learning opportunities and approaches. So communication and collaboration is essential to our work. We would not be able to do that unless we had a secure network. Our secure network provides for on-demand learning, access to online curriculum. It's what we work within for our gradebook. It allows us successful implementation of state assessments. It also provides professional learning, both virtual trainings as well as virtual meetings. I would say one of the most important things that it allows is that differentiated in instruction, because there's more choice for teachers in terms of the different ways that they can engage in instructional practice that allows for technology resources that support diverse instructional strategies. It also supports students working beyond the classroom. So while we encourage students to utilize our resources during the school day, we also want them accessing them outside of the school day. So it might be that a student is interested in researching, using our resources, selecting their own digital field trip that they might take based on an interest or a school project. So in closing, what we would like to do is we want to provide you with an example of transformation. Let me start again. In closing, we want to provide you with an example of the transformation and opportunity that's made possible through the use of technology. So just last week at Rockwell Elementary, our principal, Michael Clark, provided a digital field trip for his 4th and 5th grade students. He brought in the New York Times children's author Tom Engelberger for a visit and discussion, and that was done through Skype, so that this was a virtual learning opportunity. And in Michael's own words, he said, "We're off the ISTE charts this morning here at the Rock." And I think I mentioned to you all the last time that I was here about ISTE. So ISTE is the International Society for Technology and Education, and they set standards. And one of those standards is being a global collaborator, and this would be an example of how we're doing that. So using digital tools to broaden perspectives and enrich learning.
So we're ready to close. I have a handout I leave behind for all of you, which is just this slide, because we fire hosed a lot of information to you. And we can, I don't know if there's questions or any other
I am
follow-up.
sure there are. So if
Okay.
you could just hold one second. I think Director Stewart has one for sure.
I think this is very thorough on the, from the soup and nuts, if you will, all the way to the highly technical aspects for the student learning. I heard you mention the assistive learning technology. I didn't hear how many communications devices we have, because we've talked about all sorts of numbers that we have available to
I'm sorry,
We're having a hard time hearing you. You didn't hear how many?
of the communications devices, if you will, the speech generating devices that we have that basically, especially for our nonverbal students, are essential. I wondered how pervasive they are throughout our system at this point.
So we work in collaboration with the assistive techs and special services, so I don't have that data right off the top of our heads, but we certainly can follow up with them.
I didn't, if it wasn't in here, I didn't expect you all to. I just wanted to be able to put that in our thinking cap, because it's, for those nonverbal students, they just sit there if they don't have that.
Yeah.
Director Carlson?
This is going to sound like, I need to give you the context for this question because it's so strange, but the world keeps changing. Mileposts, and my son, who's currently applying to college, has run into two separate universities that asked him to provide a graded piece of work, which is great, except for the fact that he turned in the laptop that he did that work on and it was wiped because he did the work last year. How do we archive student work, particularly the graded work, from high school level students so that they can go back to a junior level class and use that for college applications? Is that something that, has anyone ever run into this problem before? I never anticipated this one, so it's weird.
So students, while they're in our system, have their OneDrive account?
And is OneDrive where all of their graded work lives? So from turnitin.com, the teacher comments, do those come back on OneDrive? I honestly just don't know how it works.
Well, it wouldn't come automatically. The student would have to get the graded piece of work and place it there if they wanted to protect it for themselves.
Okay.
And Turnitin.com is not a tool that all teachers use in all assignment areas, so it is a resource that is out there, but it's not something that all teachers use.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so the OneDrive, and it's, I actually
It's
am
one of
aware
those
of
awkward
the
things that you run into once in a while. You know, back when I was in school, you'd clear out your binder at the end of the year, and if you had something
Right.
important, you archived it.
Right.
But now it's on that school district provided laptop, and it's a bit of a rush to, you don't do it in the middle of August, you do it in the last week of school.
Yeah.
So I know at least one essay of interest was deleted.
Yeah.
But I supposedly in OneDrive, but that's on the students.
Yes, so students and staff are coached and told to
Yep.
place all of their critical information inside of their OneDrive account, which is preserved.
Okay.
Let me introduce you to something called paper.
Yeah, I know.
Paper file.
Well, and I'll just chime in there for a minute. I think that speaks to the level of sophistication that we have to keep providing professional learning for, because as new users, some of our teachers are brand new to some of the tools. Unfortunately, some tools are out there that aren't part of what the district supports, and then you have some inadvertent things, and Turnitin isn't necessarily one of those, but that can happen. And so that's why we've begun to be more purposeful about those processes. Then you can follow that with the procedural things that make sure that we don't lose student work. There's also platforms out there that are relatively new that have to do with digital portfolios. And our district has tried to solve that with the OneDrive piece, but there are some other things that we may need to take a look at over time, and that we just have to continue to be really clear about because of that range of experience that we have with teachers and with students. And it starts now. The good news is, as fifth graders,
Yeah.
some of our students, it started when they were in high school, and we hope that our students become better users over time too, but that's a work in progress, so
That's
it's
why you
good to
have more
know
than one
about it.
child. My youngest son's going to get this right.
We'll do everything we can to help.
Director Sage?
Thank you. It sounds like we're developing a great partnership with Microsoft in this area, and I'm wondering how available are they to come to us to, work with a group of teachers or whoever it is, or do the teachers have to go to Microsoft for basically tech support?
Right, so I think it's a combination of things. They are not staffed to provide professional learning at the individual level, like, at each individual building, but they are supporting us at the leadership level, and they're supporting us within the different programs that we do have in place. So we're really taking the approach that we're trying to address all of our leaders first, who are out in the field, who can be modeling the use of these tools and all of that professional learning that's happening out there, and our technology integration facilitators who work with teachers also at the building level. So we're trying to do it in a variety of ways. And so, for example, the online MIE program is another way that they offer that training. We know that kind of that in-person training is not always going to be the best way for everyone to learn, so we're trying to provide different ways, and I think they're really trying to support us in that. And from kind of this more formalized strategic partnership, we're getting more of their services. And I think part of this is figuring out, where do we want to bring them in? Where can we have the greatest impact with the different experts that they are willing to provide access to?
It's great, the MIE that you can do online, that certification sounds very convenient, especially given the traffic we have in this area. Yeah. I'm just curious, do they offer on their campus some kind of training quarterly?
Yeah.
Or
They have a variety of convenings for, it depends on the focus. I've asked them over the years and have never been told no. Mm-hmm. When I've organized a group of people, both within our district or even across districts, on particular topics. So they do host regular convenings, and it can be anywhere from a new teaching tool to, running your Office 365 platform, or all of Microsoft's roadmap in education. And they've been very helpful, maybe on their schedule, not mine, but we've always been able to put something together.
Right. And the last 2 years, they have provided a very extensive professional learning session, a 2-week session for teachers who are interested in participating, and it was called the Microsoft Hackathon. Mm-hmm. But essentially, the first week, they are teaching about the different tools, and then they actually take the group into like a design process where they're solving problems, and that same experience that we're wanting our kids to have, they're taking teachers through. And so they have given us much more access. That is something that they do on a global platform, so that they are inviting people from all over the world, and they have secured many more seats for us than they have in other surrounding districts. I don't know if I should say that too loud. But we definitely
because of our investment.
Yes, because of our investment and our strategic partnership. So that is advantageous.
It's never one way. So, we give them feedback on their tools, mm-hmm. and it's not always great feedback, but it is constructive feedback, to make it better mm-hmm. for us. So they value that for their product development pathways.
Sure. So teachers opt into this. If they need professional development hours, they can say, I would like to use this for my professional development. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they get clock hours
for that.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
And if I could just follow up, it is clear there's a lot of investment that we have going on. And you've spoken to the tools and how this is helping differentiated instruction and the potential for it. So my question would be, how will we know that the investment that's gone in here has impacted that differentiated instruction, or that our students are better utilizing the tools that are available on on these platforms, if they're using a text-to-speech or read out loud or any of those. So I guess that's my question. How do we know this investment is paying off where we want it to?
So through the Technology Integration Facilitator Program, we do surveys of our staff in the fall and the spring every year, and we're specifically asking questions related to the use of our tools, and the learning tools is one of those. So what we're looking for is we're looking for them to be proficient and also them to be utilizing them within instruction and then getting feedback from them so that we know where we need to be focusing our professional learning. So that's probably that's the clearest data that we have in regards to how they're using it.
Will we be looking at anything about the actual students and their experience with it and where it's going? I mean, I assume there's probably some tracking behind there of who opens up that ADA tool to do something with.
So we do collect stats. That's how I got a lot of the numbers on the handout that you have. We are able to see engagement in various pieces of the Microsoft platform and tools, and even non-Microsoft tools behind the scenes on some of our administrative consoles. So wherever we can gather data, we like to look at it and track it over time. I just did that with our Teams adoption that started in August, and the trajectory is going way up. Even though it's still hard to make that adoption and that change, the trajectory, the data is speaking for itself, so people are very active in using the tool. So we can look at that across a lot of the platforms. So we use the qualitative and the quantitative systems, and where we can, we literally, Microsoft has a very robust back end where we can collect usage data.
So I would be highly intrigued to find out the student piece of that and their experience with it. So
Yes.
There's some other platforms out there. Bright Bites, I know, is one that some districts have used, and that's probably something we can look at over time. And part of it is anecdotal. When we visit schools, I've found out from, a few students, excuse me, particularly asking fifth graders this year because they have the new adoption. How is your device working? And they'll tell me when they had to restart it because their keyboard wouldn't sync up with their screen, or it works most of the time, or we had the spinning wheel here and there. But I think that's something that as we continue to grow, we can look at some different ways, or it's in some of our existing surveys and asking the question a little bit differently about the student user experience. And the parent user experience is another aspect of that, because our students are using those devices. Some of them are bringing them home, and that looks different for many different families. And so some families may be very familiar with having a device in the home, whereas for others that may be a brand new thing and really is their family's kind of window to the world and access to web-based resources, which is an exciting thing to think about, what that does for our families, not just our students. So I think there's probably some questions we can ask on multiple levels when we ask people about their overall experience in our district.
Director?
That covered two of my questions, because I thought, to be quite frank, I really thought that serving the teachers is great and it's very necessary, but finding out from the students, finding out from the families, especially as those families try and access various tools to monitor grades and so forth, I could see many families, my own, lost in the shuffle there. Yeah. And so I thought that would be very helpful, especially as you expand. The other item, though, is you have training for teachers. How about board members?
You'd like training
December
too?
9th.
Aside from the December 9th.
We can always set up training for board members. That is not a problem. So we will happily set that up. I think Microsoft Teams is a great option for us to start looking at using.
There you go.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Director Carlson?
So I've got one last, just clarification. You said 1 to 600 is your staff to user ratio. Yeah. I'm extrapolating that to 50 people for a 30,000 student.
Yep.
Where are we hiding all of you?
Well, that's actually including me and Mindy, our
Well, yeah,
secretaries.
but are they all
and
in
our
your office?
technicians. So we have 21 technicians.
Okay.
Who move, 6 of them sit at the help desk, and the other 15 rove around the district. They do not have an office or a desk.
Wow.
They land
Okay.
in a school, land in a school. I mean, they're supposed to have a place to work inside the school. And then we have people stuffed in desks and
Nooks and
cubes.
crannies.
We literally
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
They're quite literally in closets. And I would just add to that, as our size increases, we've talked about the needs for adult spaces and people who are supporting all of the work of our district. We had our last district leadership team meeting at Microsoft because they have a room large enough for us and allow us to use that facility because we don't fit in this room anymore, even going wall to wall, chair to chair. So that is a need. And if you think about what that looks like, adding 1,100 students this year, that's 1,100 users of our devices and our network. And I think we have to really think hard about that, what that looks like for our infrastructure piece moving forward.
And if you go one-to-one, does that, yeah, it does, okay.
We built buffers to handle the growth, but we didn't expect the growth that we got this year, but we were able, we handled it.
And Director La Liberty.
I have a couple questions on data security, which you covered a little bit, but so in your presentation you said that we have filtering and firewalls that are we doing this internally, or do we contract with someone outside, and how does that work?
So we have next generation firewalls that are very, very sophisticated. They provide both the filtering and the firewall protection. We use the vendor for that, and we also have managed services. So expertise outside the district that helps us configure. We also bring a third set of eyes in, Microsoft Premier support, to help us to make sure we're doing what we think we're doing. And then of course we test it, we run it, we test it, we run it. So that's the best I can say without saying all of our security layers and how we do it. We also have, we have layers, so from the endpoint all the way to the core.
Well, you've got an army of white hat fifth graders who are trying to help you test your system, so.
Yeah, we can emails from that. Okay, great. And then the second question I have is on I'm not sure how to ask this question because I don't know enough about technology. So I guess, what redundancies, I think is the word I'm looking for, do we have in place so that if we do run into a situation where our network is compromised in some sort of way, what is there in place that protects us from just shutting down?
Well, we have redundancy on the, this could get long, consortium fiber ring. So we started a consortium with local municipalities and then added some schools with our private fiber network. So it runs a ring around the lake. So we have one more connection point and we can go 2 different ways to the data center and out the door, or through another place outside of our district in terms of communication. The other redundancies we have is we're in the Microsoft cloud. So we might have to spin up alternative ways to reach our data and our systems, say our whole network crashed, but it's not going to, knock on wood, that we can reach our data and start, keep our business going.
Okay, I understood some of that. I'm sure you explained it very clearly.
Well, it's a good point because there's recovery of multiple kinds. There's recovery from just a network crash. There's also recovery from a natural disaster, or in my previous location, a massive fire that took out the entire district office. And so those recovery capabilities are very important.
So it sounds like we know what we're doing and we know what we're talking about. But do we?
Well, so Eric,
no. Hey, let me finish.
No, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Are you worried because there's different layers to this? There's bank level redundancy where it can't fail, and there's web page redundancy where if it fails, big whoop. We're not bank level because of the investment that would be required to do that, but we are going to be at a level that's appropriate for what we do. We're not going to take.
Thank you. I guess what my question is how do we know that we are at the right level, and how are we having an audit done of this ever by anything external? How do we know if we're doing how do we know that is there something validating that we're doing the right thing?
Okay, so our ERP systems, payroll, student information system, and HR system all run in the WSIPSI private cloud. They are audited on a regular basis. So those are there. Then all of our content, our email, our network systems are run through Microsoft Azure. So those are there. We hire third-party security audit, intrusion testing, and then through our managed services, who are, companies with prowess, like IBM, for instance, to help us make sure that our network is secure, recoverable, and prepared for disaster recovery. We have a DR plan, a disaster recovery plan. We go through some what-if scenarios, but it's hard to practice it live. But we believe, based on best practice, what we know, and our partners the things we've set up, that we are as secure as we can be, to Chris's point, for a school district operation.
Thank you.
Sally also networks with other districts, and I think there's a fair amount of knowledge sharing between districts in terms of how all of our districts are trying to figure that layering and what is enough cybersecurity, knowing that really no network is beyond reach to some degree or another. It's the causative factor that you can't predict that would take away your capability in terms of then how you recover. But I think that's also worth noting, is that districts are sharing that kind of information all the time, just for best practices and what's kind of the latest and greatest solution.
And something you might want to do, we have the operational expectation for technology, number 13, is to walk through those policies and just confirm that cybersecurity, that parameter, that just might be something to think about, to make sure that parameter is clearly stated so that it can be monitored and audited in the way that ensures that, and that way that information can be done. Any other questions or clarification? All right, well, I want to say thank you so much for your presentation and the information. This is fabulous. It's an incredible amount of work in being able to do so, and blending both the hardware side. I also think the very exciting thing was you mentioned the garage and the design thinking that was happening with Tesla STEM. That'll be exciting to see what comes from that and if that expands elsewhere. So fun to hear all those innovative things happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so next item is the Public and Community Affairs. So Eric, do you have anything to report this evening?
I'm trying to recall. Not really is the honest answer. But we did, Jane and Siri and I met today with Grace, and I'm blank, Ewan? Thank you. Who is a legislative affairs professional that we work with. And we spent some more time strategizing about how we can be more effective in the upcoming session. So more to come. We're still digesting, I think.
And we'll begin setting up appointments.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stavum. The key takeaway is that we are going to be starting to schedule meetings with our legislators in the upcoming weeks and into the next month. So more on that to come. It would be important to have at least one board member, 2 board members at those meetings. So we'll get those scheduled.
I'm blanking. Short session or long session this year? Short, thanks.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. And so the next item is Superintendent Report. Dr. Stavum.
Yeah, I don't have anything specific, but I've just been thinking tonight before our next board meeting, we are in the season of gratitude, and we'll have a holiday between now and then, and we have much just to be thankful for. I think as a district, it bears just taking a few minutes, and I think it's reflective of all of those great things when we see successful students. Tonight we've talked about the resources that we have and how we're utilizing them, a board that does good work as we revise policies and try and set good foundational pieces that help our district to operate well. Our Facility Advisory Committee will be starting this week, which is another opportunity for us to work collaboratively with community members and experts to think forward and to think about more good things to come in the future for our district. And so we're grateful to our community, and we're grateful to all of the different partners that we have as we try to do great work for our students and allow them to have all of the opportunities that they can possibly have. So I just wanted to give a collective thank you and express our gratitude for all of the supports that we enjoy as a school district.
Thank you. And so at this point, are there any board member comments? Director Sage.
So I have two. I'll try to be brief. I went to the Sammamish Community Forum on drug use, I think it was last week, and a couple of things really stood out to me. One was a company, a nonprofit called Influence the Choice, brought in their Hidden in Plain Sight exhibit, and it's a teenager's bedroom, which looks like the teenager has been home alone for the weekend. It's very messy. And they, let everybody walk through it and try to see something that's really out of place. If you're concerned that your student may have become involved with drugs or is interested in them. And some very simple things they pointed out, such as their backpack had the number 420 on it, which refers to marijuana. There was a water bottle in the room that was filled with vodka. Obviously doesn't look different from, visualizing it. They had some USB drives that were actually vaping devices. So things that they're trying to show parents what you might look for, or just be aware. If you see these things, they are probably out of place, and you should ask why. Another one was if they have even just Tylenol in their room in a container. Why do they have that? Did you give them permission to have that, or is this a new form that an illegal drug is coming in and you should be concerned? So that was an interesting topic, and also data came up that says parents are the primary influence when talking with their kids and whether or not the kids will go on and use drugs or alcohol. And they suggested a starttalkingnow.org. If you don't know how to reach those conversations, how do you even get started? And then the second thing I wanted to tell you about was last Friday I spent the day at Children's Hospital in Seattle, and I got PRISM certified. And PRISM is an acronym for Promoting Resilience in Stress Management. And in our particular training was for adults who are experiencing extreme stress with kids who have, critical medical needs. But it's the same training they give teenagers to deal with the stress of having a medical condition or a diagnosis and how you, move through that. I found it to be highly beneficial, and I can get a copy of what the program is to anybody who's interested. I think we were the first class to go through and get certified, so it's brand new. And I think it's going to help a lot, at least my end of it is going to help a lot with the parent-to-parent. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Director Stewart?
It would be great, as we're starting to plan for other presentations, the level of detail that we received on IT. When I talked about the speech-generating devices, I'd love to see a presentation on how we're implementing it and how we're integrating it for kids. You'd mentioned, I think, last meeting, you went to one of the schools and one of the students typed out on his or her, I don't remember which his device, do you want to share my raisins? And it's that kind of interaction that makes school meaningful for those kids. It's not just that's the social perhaps, but you combine that social with the ability then to be able to participate in class with questions and so forth. And so to me, it's very imperative that we make sure that our kids, as early as possible, have those devices. And I'd love to see a presentation that's combined not just the special needs staff, but also the IT people, and show what they've got. And perhaps if Microsoft now has something that's in the works or that we could help pilot. Currently, most of the devices are Apple. And so if we could do that, that'd be great. I just look at what they say is if you have those devices early, if you want to be just cold-blooded about it, you save $8 for every $1 you spend. And the kids no longer become, if they don't have that kind of training early on, their communications device is acting out. And they basically, they become a behavioral problem as opposed to a kid that can actually communicate.
Accessibility is included with our strategic plan goals, and that's one of the things that's very interesting to us. And if I'm not mistaken, and our Sally and Mindy team have exited, but the Microsoft tools can be used on a variety of devices. And what's most interesting that they touched on tonight was the ability to have some of that assistive technology right within those tools so that you're not having to have multiple devices. And I think that's really exciting. Also, the lens that we look through just in how we share information and having things accessible in terms of closed captioning and readability and all of those things. So we can certainly arrange for some special information on our assistive technology aspect of our technology goals.
Well, I know when we were searching to find a device, basically we asked what language do you want to, because there's Proloquo to Go, and there's about 5 others that are really super. And so we basically went to the district and say, okay, which one do you prefer to use? And it was, I think the fact that we're using so much Microsoft, to me, it's imperative that we help them to develop what the students could really benefit from.
So, I don't know what to call it, a short report on assistive technology. It's that special niche in between the SPED space and the tech space would absolutely be lovely.
Yeah, and assistive technology, the one aspect that really narrows it down, because that takes in a big spectrum, are the speech generating devices, the SPG, I think it is.
Any other board comment? I would just like to encourage anybody, if you have the opportunity, a lot of high school plays are going on right now, as well as some of the middle schools are well worth catching. It's a great opportunity. I believe Lake Washington High Schools is still, yeah, and then
It's going to have amazing costumes.
So
it's owned by some amazing seamstresses.
It's a great chance to be
And
able
a
to
couple
catch.
of amazing seamstress spouses.
It's also good, and some you'll start to see some of the issues teens are dealing with and thinking about. They're doing an excellent job of creating some of these issues and putting them on stage for people to hold those conversations, so well worth the effort. Also, just as an FYI, Cte Pathways, which is the collective impact that works with multiple nonprofits as well as city and our school districts, Bellevue and Lake Washington, has done a strategic plan or in the process of sort of implementing that through and sort of operationalizing it. So we have about a 4-hour meeting, I believe, on Wednesday that I will be attending, and I believe Matt Gillingham might be joining me. So just as an FYI. Also coming up, as I don't know, the WASDA conference, the school director conference begins this week. So on Thursday is the pre-session. I'll be attending the law one. I'm not sure if anybody else is. And then, oh, excellent. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it will continue from there. So hopefully, I think Director Sage, you're going as well. Director Liberty, excellent. And Director Zerk, great. Would love to have you there, Chris, if you can show up for a day. It'd be fabulous. No pressure from this side. But that is a great opportunity. There'll be some really good things on policy governance. So moving from there, if there's no other comments, our upcoming board meeting is December 9th. We will have a study session at 5 on the operational expectations, legislative connections, and the other policies, as well as there is a data training. So you had asked about training on Power BI and actually the data set at 4 p.m. being put on. So if you're interested, please let Diane know right now. I believe Cassandra is the only person currently signed up. And then from there, we'll have our board meeting at 7 p.m. And with that, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Director Liberty and seconded by Director Carlson that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then we are adjourned.